Welcome to a different kind of doula and Happy New Year. We are starting off the new year, and that's what our topic is today. I'm Kathleen Putnam, and I'm here with Maureen Cures, and we are end of life doulas. And today we are going to talk about, on a different kind of doula, New Year's resolutions. And New Year's resolutions from a perspective of end of life. And there's a lot out there about this. So it was really fun. And I noticed, Maureen, that New Year's resolutions make people go, because over 50% of people abandon their New Year's resolutions by the end of January. So one thing that I know is that if you do a baby step, if you do small, consistent things, we're more successful, but we're such instant gratification people, But so I'm going to start out with something kind of funny is we all know, what do you think the number one New Year's resolution would be just out there for people?
I
Maureen?
think I think either dieting or exercise.
Yeah, so the Business Review said get active with a daily exercise routine. I know last year, post-COVID, right? Post-COVID, mental health, take care of mental health, bypassed nutrition and weight loss for like one of the first times ever. So, we're coming around, but number two was eat more fruits and vegetables and less processed food. And then what I wanted to call out that's kind of funny is from the Business Review, establish a consistent self-care routine was
Uh,
number 50. Okay. Eat fruits and vegetables was number two. And I'm a dietitian. I don't have any problem with that. But, one thing that comes to me when I'm looking at these lists and I want to pull out, when we're talking about caregivers, grieving, what funeral homes say, what about doing your paperwork is, it reflects your values. And Maureen, you and I both talk a lot about values with our participants. I've been trained in acceptance commitment and use that a lot in my nutrition practice as a coach as well. So, what do you do with values as an end of life doula?
well, I love values because until we really know our values, it's hard to know what we stand for or what we're going towards. And our values can change over time, and people don't realize that. You think, oh, I have to be this way. But we don't take time to reflect. So I have them go through a values exercise where they choose all these different values, and then they have to hone it down to five and really, which five are the ones that stand out to me. And then, they can take it even further down to three, but really, and we've like on the exercises, I found that a lot of our values, I might say honesty and integrity are important to me. Well, which one? They're sort of, it can be the same, because if you're a person of integrity, you would most likely also be an honest person. So which one resonates more with you? So just really getting in there and figuring out that word. But once people have their value set, that can, and they understand them, that can help them take off in doing things like setting your resolutions. One of the things about resolutions, we all, as you said, we all give them up by the end of the month. And then that's a sense of failure because it's like, oh shoot. So, or it becomes a joke. Oh yeah, my New Year's resolutions, where it really doesn't have to be if we know what motivates and drives us and we set our values or our resolutions based on our values.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. One of the values exercises that I did with a money coach a long time ago, just sitting in a bank, it was a free service. It was incredible. Was how are you spending your money? That reflects your values. And
Oh
I
wow.
like that because it's kind of like, where are you spending your money, your time, your energy? And what I like for people to think about too is the stuff that's going on in your head, the stuff that keeps you up at night, the stuff that worries you, and how can you separate from that? So I love having a list. I find too that values can compete with one another.
Mhm.
And that's the human condition. And I have a really hard time, Maureen, with just getting down to 5. I had somebody do 3 and I really hated that. But I know that end of life can be a place in which, again, with a deteriorating health condition or with limited time, values do compete with one another. Our time is limited. And so it's a real good thought-provoking process to discuss end-of-life issues. So I wanted to hand off to you. One of the resources that we found was New Year's resolutions for caregivers, Maureen, and I know we talk about this all the time.
Oh, yeah. I think that with caregivers, we don't take care of ourselves as caregivers. I think one of the resolutions caregivers should make is, we've talked about this, Kathleen, asking for help, uh, accepting help, and it's hard, especially if you're a family caregiver and you think you have to do it all and you're overwhelmed and overloaded. It's very hard for us to ask someone for help. And even when people offer it, we so often say no. Oh, I'm okay. I'm fine. And that's really a disservice to us because we can't keep going if our tank is empty. And so to be able to ask, it was funny, I'll tell you a story. My husband had a huge surgery, and somehow one of our neighbors that don't know real well, but she found out about it. And she called me and said, I'm bringing dinner over tonight. Will anyone be home? And I said, Oh, no, you don't have to do that. She's like, I'm bringing dinner over tonight. Will anyone be home or should I bring an ice chest? And again, I said, You don't really, I don't know if he's going to be in the hospital tonight, out of the hospital. And she said, Ice chest, no ice chest. So, but my husband ended up getting discharged at like 6:45 in the evening. And we got home and I'd been at the hospital for a few days and there was that food. And I thought, why were you saying no to that? Why were you trying that? Like you didn't want to put someone else out when she really wanted to. So ask, and then when it is offered, receive. That's a great New Year's resolution for a caregiver. Um, I think that for a caregiver, I'm all about the paperwork, getting those advanced directives done, getting our wishes decided, documented, and discussed with those that matter most to us. We'll make that your resolution as a caregiver because if we're encouraging others to do that and we don't have it done ourselves, it just isn't always, you can't speak with real authority and integrity in that way because, I mean, people will ask, oh, have you done this? Well, if you say, oh, yes, but you haven't, then you're out of integrity. So I think it's just a great thing. What else do you think, Kathleen?
I love the asking for help, I think, and accepting help graciously. And I think we can practice that now. I would say if just because of our societal values, getting back to values of independence, not needing other people, not being a burden is one of the number one things at end of life people are concerned about. And also being of service and connected to people and helping other people is one of the greatest rewards in life. So I feel like practicing with that and seeing that there's a give and take with that. And I do think accepting graciously. I love the guilt-free break from caregiving, really, and also really not avoiding those really important conversations. And I think, about the diagnosis, about the prognosis, and I even noticed this as an end-of-life doula, family member, and my own health. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't really want to bring that up, or I really don't want to talk about it, or I don't want to have to face the resistance, or oh, I'm worried about hurting their feelings. But instead, really getting connected with that compassion and that fear. And again, that's part of the human condition. So being kind and compassionate with yourself, that it's scary. A lot of us were not taught how to talk about this. We were taught how to avoid. So I like all of those. And as caregivers, we have a tendency to not accept help. And then we get burnt out and we get compassion fatigue, and our health and our wellness, our mental health, our physical health, and our wellness is pushed to the side because we're prioritizing others.
Well, I think that that is so important. It's so important, the guilt-free self-care.
Mhm.
It's like that old analogy that you've probably all heard a gazillion times about being on an airplane and putting the oxygen on yourself first and then going to your child, because you can't be any help if you pass out. And as caregivers, I think one of the biggest gifts we could give as a friend of a caregiver, I'm here for a couple hours. You go take a nap, you go do this, you go, whatever. Do you want to go get a massage? Whatever you want to do, I'm here to give you that break, because that goes back to the asking and receiving help. One of the other things that I think is very important for caregivers and would be a good resolution is in 2024, get to know the resources in your area for seniors in your area, and then know about national resources. And this is really important to me because my mother and father-in-law are aging, and I just today had this conversation with my father-in-law about what if his wife gets sick, and how he couldn't take care of everything. He's had knee surgery. He's 91. And he was so concerned. What would I do? What would I do? And I said, well, first of all, I know resources. I know how to find them here in Seattle. So that means I'm going to know how to find them in the Chicago area. And so that is a gift that you can give yourself as a caregiver, is to really be able to identify how to find resources. So we talked about hiring a caregiver to come in with him to do things during the night, let the dogs out, you know. So those are important things that we don't really think of, that's a resolution we should make, or that would be important for us to know. We just naturally gather some, and the more we know, the more empowered we can be to help our clients.
Yeah, and I think that resistance to talk about your needs or whatever is, we do come up against that rejection, or people being worried, especially if we're around the same age, that's going to happen to them. And then I think one of the tricky things around the resistance is that identity. If I call about dementia, if I call about heart disease, if I call about death and dying, that means that I'm admitting, or that I'm this kind of person. And so that judgment, that loving kindness, and finding others that are going through the same types of things so that it can be normalized is really, really important. And I think that definitely comes up with resistance around really learning about the illness and the prognosis piece that can be really helpful.
People don't want to know about the prognosis.
Mhm.
Family members don't want to admit it.
Mhm.
And a lot of people going through the life limiting illness, they don't want to know, because they think, oh, if they say 6 months, then I'll give
Mhm.
up. You know. So,
Mhm.
but I've
Yeah.
watched a lot of people being told certain time frames, and they've lived much longer. There's all different kinds of things. I want to get on to grief, which is your area of expertise, Kathleen. What are resolutions people should make around grief? Because grief's a big deal, especially coming out of the holidays, dealing with grief and loss of the holidays, or if someone's died in the last year and you're still grieving, you
Oh, you're
can
bringing up
feel
really
bad, and
good
people
stuff.
people make you feel bad that you're still grieving. So
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things, is it takes the time that it takes. And grief is super complex. It's a mixture of a lot of emotions, physical signs, physical impact, mental impact and signs. And so I think one of the things is that judgment piece, and not to have an expectation around the limits of grief, and the time commitment it takes as long as it takes, and it looks the way that it looks, uniquely different for all of us. So comparison is very painful, and unreasonable expectations is really painful, and it adds to the grief process. If we're being harsh for ourselves, still being in grief, then it makes grieving worse, and it isolates us more. Because if we really believe that, then we think everybody else is thinking that too, that I should be over it by now, that the first year is supposed to be the hardest. And many people say, no, that's not the case, because the first year, a lot of times people are really busy. And a lot of people do attend to people during the first year. But when it moves into subsequent years, there may be different things that is causing the pain, or that the grief has hit a new level for the person in a reality. Like, I'm going to have to deal with a house now. I'm going to have to deal with college funds now. I'm going to have to deal with my own health issues all by myself. I'm going to have to process my day without someone. Yeah. What about for you, Maureen? Around
I read this about being flexible with grief, whether it's yourself or others, the expectations of grief. And so develop flexibility about it. And I love a mentor of mine that's more in the business arena. She always says, "Blessed are the flexible, for they shall never be bent out of shape." Kathleen's heard me say it a lot. And I've always, since she first said that a number of years ago, I thought, what a great saying. What a great saying, because really things are going to happen. That unexpected grief's going to hit. Be flexible with yourself. You won't be bent out of shape if you are. And it's really helped me reframe so many things in my life. But I think that having that flexibility to go with grief, or to help someone or stand with someone that is going through a period of grief, is really important and powerful. And to not get caught up in the shoulds. Stop shitting on yourself. I should be over this, or I should be further along. I should be able to go a day without crying. My best friend died 14 years ago. Her parents still cry every single day, they tell me, and that will be probably the rest of their lives. She was younger, and it's something that will be with us. So stop shitting on yourself. That would
Yeah.
be a great resolution
Mm-hmm.
in many areas of life.
In many areas, but grief, it is really, really helpful, I think. And I think forgiveness of yourself, and forgiveness of anything that may be hurtful. There was a period of time where I was reading memoirs, a lot of them around death and dying, and the process of a loved one dying, or almost dying, or finishing a book of someone who did die. And there was always a piece about the hurtful things that are said and done by loved ones or the community, or feeling alienated from a organization that you think you should be getting support from, like a volunteer organization or a religious organization. And one thing that I think can be really helpful is to not take it personally. It's like the 4 agreements, but have some distance between somebody who is not grief literate, does not know what to do. Even if they've been in the same shoes, their experience is not the same. I remember somebody saying when my dad died, "Well, welcome to the club. Now you're part of this club." And I remember at the time I was really raw, and it was like, oh, so it's like no big deal. It wasn't followed up with anything else. And so I remember I just took a deep breath and said, okay, that's just the way they're responding to it right now. And if they wanted to create distance, they did. And in my heart, I don't want to put my energy toward being mad about this, but
Right.
I did get bent out of shape with comparing grief with my siblings and seeing things eye to eye, and then also forgiving myself for that, I think, is really important. Or forgiving yourself around the way that somebody died. You know, I heard many talks at the End Well conference, and this was one of the topics brought up about 3 or 4 years ago. And it was really even the best of deaths, you know, where people go, you know, that person had everything they said and wanted done. We were able to carry out all their wishes. There was still guilt. There was still regret. There was still wishes that more could have been done. And so I think it's really important. I think the finality and not being able to forgive out loud the person or yourself, I think it's really important to do that.
Oh gosh, forgiveness is, I think, putting forgiveness as one of the top resolutions is so important because we don't forgive ourselves, we don't forgive others. Well, we do, but not, it doesn't always come easily, and it takes practice. So resolve to practice forgiveness of self and others. And I really think sometime someone was doing this rapid fire thing and it was regret. And I thought, I said unnecessary. And I really think that if we can forgive ourselves or others for things or make amends, ask for forgiveness, um, we can then live without regret. Yes, I'm sorry I did that. And there's nothing I can do now, but will you forgive me? You don't have to say there's nothing I can do now, but it goes so far. And I think that as I've learned to be better at practicing that, I'm still a gazillion miles from perfect, but it's really helped me to get rid of regret for things that had happened in life.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Like
think you're a
regret,
really good role model that way, Marie.
regret that I didn't answer my cousin's call when we were on vacation and he died that weekend. And I was like, oh, I was beating myself up for that for a long time. But then I thought, wait, I've answered his call every other time. And,
Yeah.
he knew I was there for him, but it took a lot of work to really let that go. And to know that, do I still sometimes wish I'd answered that call? Sure. But I don't regret not like I did in the beginning, thinking, oh my gosh, what if he was calling me because he died of a heart attack, and he was alone. And I was like, what if that was the time he was trying to call me because he was having chest pain or something? All these things would go through my mind. And I finally had to say, no, but I was there for him every other time. And if I didn't have my phone with me, these darn cell phones, I would never have known. But yeah, letting go of regret as much as we can, I think, is so important.
Oh, I love
Or
that.
doing things to resolve the issue.
Yeah, that's a great example. I would say a lot of us look back and say, I wish I would have, you know, after a person died. I love the regrets. And I think there's lots written about living a life where you're not in regret. And the top three that came out of the Crossroads Hospice article about New Year's resolutions with regrets is spending more time with family. In the end, uh, family and people who you call family and choose to be your family. In the end, that's what's really important. Who loves me and who do I love? And I want more time with them and not sweating the small stuff. And for me, the New Year's resolution of really doing more of what you love. I think that we're constantly being inundated with things that we should be doing. So it goes hand in hand with those shoulds and also being really mindful about how we're doing things. And I think being able to tolerate the discomfort of Maureen wants me to do this and this is what I love to do, you know, and I'm just taking that as an example. You don't put a lot of pressure on me. It's like, you know, having a rub, and I definitely have values that rub up against each other about having internal peace and wanting to have fun and be carefree. Those rub up against each other a lot. And so it's how do I create space and intention moving forward?
Gosh, that's so good. As you're saying something, something came into my mind and now it's just gone. But I think that just living our lives, I know what it was, setting boundaries so that we don't get caught up doing the stuff that doesn't bring us joy. and that doesn't allow us to live a good day or live a good life. And we all do that. I remember when I turned 50, I thought, why am I allowing so many negative people into my life? I remember on my 50th birthday, it just hit me. I don't want negative people in my life. I don't want negativity. So sorry if you're listening, but I I really focused on being around people that were positive or that were more positive. What is it that we are the sum of the five people we spend the most time with? So really make a resolution to spend time with people that are meaningful to you, that bring value and joy to your life. Because, like you were saying, people don't say, gosh, I wish I spent more time at work. I regret not spending more time at work. Yet, what do most of us do? We spend the majority of our adult life at work. As when I was working with people that were dying of cancer, that was the more family time was always, why didn't I do more? Or why didn't I do this? Or why didn't I do that? So make that bucket list, maybe that's it. Make that bucket list and just start checking things off, but finding joy and maybe focusing on getting rid of the negativity.
Oh, I
And then
love it.
we can jump into you know of course, I love to tell people your advanced directives, but that can be really heavy. So if you just work on things like this year, having the conversations that matter, spending time with people that matter to you, um, and then just thinking about what you would want if something happened. So you don't have to even write it down. It's always best if you do, though. Year, I'm going to resolve to be more open to having these crucial conversations.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's so important to break through that fear and the stigma. And at one time, we used to have elders who would guide us through this part, and we had a lot more rituals and life passings, where we would mark the different times in our life, and you were revered the longer you lived. And so I think also asking people, what was that like? What is this like for you? What are you most scared of? What do you want? What happened when your spouse died? What happened when your parent died? What do you regret? What's important for me to know? And I think that's what these New Year's resolutions reflect, is a collective. And I think for me, I love the negativity. And I think really getting rid of the shoulds for me and slowing down and being a lot more intentional is really important, and realizing that there's so much to be grateful for, and shining the light on that rather than the things that are wrong, I think is so important in my life. And so we're dealing with, resistance and cultural stigma, and really to make changes, we just take a baby step. And so we're here to help support you.
So one of the biggest takeaways from this for me today, get rid of the shoulds, work on forgiveness, and live your life fully and without regret as much as possible, but live your life now.
Mhm.
Don't put off what you can do. Sure, going to on a 3-month European tour might not be feasible, but watch Rick Steves videos. Do something to bring yourself joy. Anyway, we have to wrap this up. So thank you so much for joining us today on A Different Kind of Doula. And Kathleen and I are part of the Gentle Passage Doula Collective. We offer mentoring, coaching, and we do doula training courses. So if you have gotten into the idea or the mindset that maybe I would like to step into end of life doula work, reach out, go to our website, our Gentle Passage Doula Collective.com, and you can go to our events page. And we have we have some informational webinars coming up about our upcoming virtual doula training. It's 8 weeks. We also host a monthly Death Cafe the second Friday of every month from 12:30 to 1:30 Pacific Standard Time. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next week on A Different Kind of Doula.
Thank you.